In this lesson, we will learn how to manage keyframes in the graph editor, and we'll also learn how to cycle animation infinitely. Now, the graph editor is going to be your most important tool for polishing animation, so it's very important that we understand how it works. And once you start to use it, eventually you'll become comfortable with it. But if you're new to working with something like the graph editor or an F-curve editor, it might seem a bit daunting. But again, all you have to do is practice with it, and then it'll become your friend. All right, so let's say we go ahead and get to the graph editor. We can access it by going to Window, Animation Editors, and then we'll go ahead and move to the graph editor. So from here, if we were to press the F key, take a look, we can see all keyframes and all function curves that are tied to the selected object here in this list. You could also pin down channels. So let's say if we were to pin down the Translate Y, you'll notice that when we deselect, it'll still remain visible, and we can go in and select other objects by simply shift selecting them to have them load into this editor. But of course, once we close this out and we try to reopen the editor, all of that information is removed. All right, sweet. So let's say we go ahead and take a look at our animation. We'll go ahead and focus on the Translate Y. This is basically the only channel we've actually animated. So you'll notice that we have this type of interpolation, this transition between each key. And you can see how it is smooth, and we have other results for setting the exact interpolation type that we would like to use. And you can learn more about that in Introduction to Animation. Now what we'd like to do is go ahead and add a little bit more movement to our mech so that the motion looks more believable. Right now he's just moving up and down, but that's not too convincing. So we'll go to take it a step further. Let's go ahead and focus on our Translate X, or side-to-side movement, so he can move in more of a circular pattern. All right, so here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and learn how to create keyframes right here from the graph editor. Now keep in mind that in order to create a keyframe here, you first need a keyframe set. So you'd have to go in and set a keyframe before you're able to create a keyframe in the graph editor. So thankfully we have keys that we can start to play around with. All right, fantastic. So again, we're going to focus on the Translate X. If I were to go ahead and grab one of these keys and then grab the Move tool, take a look, we could actually middle click and drag to start moving this around. And I'm doing this to give you an idea of what type of movement we're about to add, some side-to-side movement here. Fantastic. So let's say we go ahead and get to it. So we'll go to frame 9, our midpoint between 1 and 17. Let's go ahead and grab our Insert Key tool. What's great about the Insert Key tool is it will keep the integrity of your function curve. So even if your curve was at more of an angle, once you use the Insert Key tool, it'll look as if nothing changed on your curve, except a little dot that has been added, which is, of course, a keyframe. So I'll now go to middle click where I'd like the keyframe to be. Once the F-curve is selected, we would then middle click to insert a key with the Insert Key tool. Fantastic. Next, let's say we go ahead and move over to frame 25. That's our next midpoint. This is between 17 and 33. And we'll do the same thing again. We'll go ahead and middle click. Fantastic. So now we can go ahead and grab our Move tool so we could start moving this key. And let's say we could start with 9. Once we have a value we like on 9, we can use the reciprocal on 25 so that our idle looks seamless. Let's say we go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and grab the key on 9. Let's hold down Shift and we'll middle mouse button click and drag down. By holding down Shift, we can lock our movement either in time, meaning we can only move in value, or we can lock our movement in value, meaning we can only move in time when we start to drag left and right. But in this case, we just want to drag up and down because we don't want to retime these keys. We've already decided on the timing of these keys, right? All right, so once we've moved this key down, you can see we have some movement now when we scrub on the time slider, when we drag with the left mouse button. Fantastic. So this is subtle enough. Let's say we go ahead and take this value that we have set on 9. We'll just go ahead and copy that. We'll now go ahead and move to 25. We'll paste that value in our value stat. Notice this is our time stat, which shows us the frame of this key, and here's our value stat. So now we just want to remove this negative operator Let's go ahead and get rid of that and hit enter in the value stat, and now we have mirrored this key. Fantastic. So here's what we end up with when we hit play. Notice how we get a nice circular pattern. However, it pauses at certain points in the animation. Where are those pauses coming from? Well, it's coming from the start and end. You can see it's not coming from the center because that blends nicely. So let me go ahead and show you how to fix this, and we'll also at the same time learn how to cycle our animation infinitely. So with our center of gravity control selected here, we'll go to Curves, Pre-Infinity, Cycle, Curves, Post-Infinity Cycle. Now to see what actually has happened, let's go to View and turn on Infinity. So you can see how our animation extrapolates before time and after time. It will continue infinitely. So watch this. We can go ahead and set our range to, let's say, 300, and notice how the animation will continue. How cool is that? So we can use this for, let's say, walk cycles. If we need to create background characters that walk through our set, this is the way to do it to save a lot of time. Can you imagine if we didn't have a tool like this? We'd be animating for a very long time, wouldn't we? So let's go ahead and fix that pausing issue. We'll just go to our Translate X. We'll go ahead and grab our end key and grab our start key. Now let's go ahead and hold down Shift to grab their tangents. We're going to grab their two out tangents on the right hand side of the handle. And now we can go ahead and focus on one half. We'll middle mouse button click and drag down until our infinite curve blends seamlessly into the actual F curve. Fantastic. So now when we hit play, take a look at how there's no longer any more of a pause in that channel. If we want to remove a key, by the way, you could just go ahead and highlight the key and press the delete key on your keyboard. But now the animation isn't too seamless at all. We'll notice that there's a change in the beginning that looks different from the movement at the end. So you have to be really careful about that. Fantastic. So in this lesson, we've learned about the graph editor. We've learned about our function curves as well and how we could start to use them to polish our animations. In the next lesson, I'd like to introduce you to AutoKey, and we'll also learn how to create really simple expressions to edit keyframes in the graph editor.